Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some kids seem to be constantly trying to fix everyone else's emotions, or why others run away from any emotional situation? This new paper dives deep into that very idea, giving us a fresh look at how children learn to manage not just their own feelings, but the feelings of the people around them. Today we're talking about something called interpersonal extrinsic dysregulation. It sounds complex, but it's a really cool way to understand how children develop patterns of trying to influence or sometimes avoid the emotional states of others. Think about 26-year-olds, Amelia and Charlotte. Amelia sees her mom crying and offers her teddy bear. Asking sweetly what's wrong, Charlotte, on the other hand, tells her mom to stop crying because she doesn't like it and walks away. These different reactions are what this research is all about. Basically, this paper introduces a new idea, interpersonal extrinsic dysregulation. It's all about children who either consistently struggle to adjust their attempts to change other people's emotions or regularly avoid situations where emotions are running high. The researchers want to make sure we understand this is different from a child's own struggles with their emotions. This new idea focuses on the child's role as a sort of emotional manager for others. And when that function goes wrong, they're building a whole new way to think about these emotional exchanges from family to friendships. The researchers start by asking a really important question. How do children respond when they see someone else feeling something strong, like sadness or anger? Children are always surrounded by emotions in their families and with their friends. They're constantly reacting to and trying to influence how others feel. We know kids are different in how they do this, and it matters for their friendships and how well they adjust in life. But until now, we haven't had a good way to describe when a child's way of handling this is not just a little immature, but persistently problematic. This study aims to fill that gap. So, what exactly is interpersonal extrinsic dysregulation? Imagine emotion regulation as having two main parts. Intrapersonal and interpersonal. Interpersonal is all about how you manage your own feelings. Interpersonal is about how you deal with emotions in relationships. Within interpersonal, there is extrinsic regulation. That's when you try to influence or manage someone else's emotions. Think of Amelia comforting her mom. Then Therese intrinsic regulation, where you seek help from others to manage your own emotions. The paper clarifies that this new concept, interpersonal extrinsic dysregulation, is specifically about the extrinsic part. It's not just about a temporary slip-up in handling emotions or just being able to recognize that someone is upset. It's a consistent, long-term pattern where a child either tries to manage others' emotions in ways that don't quite work, or they consistently bail out of emotionally charged situations altogether. The researchers point out that how children deal with others' emotions is often shaped by their early experiences. Things like family life, financial stress, and cultural expectations all play a big role. During childhood, kids are facing the challenge of managing their own feelings while also trying to navigate their parents' emotions. This can create a tricky balance. Practices like parents not showing how to manage emotions well or being dismissive of a child's feelings can really make it harder for kids to develop healthy ways to handle emotions, both their own and others. Now, how does this pattern actually develop? The paper proposes a framework built on three main ideas. First, from a social learning perspective, kids learn by watching. They see how parents and others handle emotions and can start to copy those strategies or adopt certain beliefs about who should be responsible for emotional stability. Second, attachment theory suggests that if a child has inconsistent or unreliable experiences with their caregivers, they might become hypervigilant to others' emotions and feel an overwhelming sense of responsibility to keep things calm. Think of a child constantly trying to appease a parent to keep the peace. Third, reinforcement learning explains how certain behaviors get stronger. If a child tries to calm down a parent, and it sometimes works, even if it's not the healthiest way, that behavior gets a little boost, making the child more likely to do it again. These three things working together can explain how a child might develop these persistent patterns. Children are really sponges when it comes to emotions, especially in their early years. They're deeply connected to the emotional atmosphere in their family. If a child's attempts to soothe a parent, for example, do manage to reduce tension, that behavior gets rewarded by the positive relational outcome. Over time, this can lead a child to believe that their own emotional stability is tied to their ability to manage their parents' feelings. This can become a learned pattern, even if it is not entirely healthy or appropriate as they get older. Attachment theory helps us understand the emotional basis of this. If a child has an insecure attachment, meaning they didn't always have consistent and sensitive care, they might develop strategies to manage their caregiver's emotions to feel safe. For instance, If a child tries to comfort a sad parent and the parent reacts with annoyance, the child might learn to withdraw or escalate their own behavior to get a predictable response. These learned strategies, shaped by early attachment experiences, can then influence how a child approaches regulating the emotions of others throughout their childhood. Once these initial strategies are learned, they're reinforced through ongoing interactions. Using Skinner's ideas about operant conditioning, behaviors that lead to good outcomes get strengthened. In emotional situations, a child's efforts to manage someone else's feelings might get reinforced if they temporarily reduce conflict or get them attention. Coercion theory also highlights how negative interactions can become a cycle, with a child's difficult behavior getting reinforced because it stops an aversive situation for a moment. Even when these strategies are taken into peer relationships, where the social dynamics are different, reinforcement keeps shaping these behaviors based on how peers react. But it's not just about motivation and learned behaviors. Successfully managing someone else's emotions also requires having the right toolkit of skills. This includes understanding emotions, seeing things from another person's perspective, and knowing which strategies work best in different situations. Children who grow up in emotionally stable and responsive environments tend to build a richer, more flexible toolkit. However, if a child's upbringing is emotionally chaotic, they might become very good at spotting emotions and feeling motivated to intervene, but their toolkit might be limited or even flawed. This can lead to their attempts to help actually making things worse. This mismatch is a key part of why interpersonal extrinsic dysregulation happens. These different processes don't just happen one after another, they build on each other. Attachment experiences set the initial tone, shaping how a child feels about engaging with others' emotions. Then, social learning shows them how to try and manage those emotions, often by picking up on intense emotional moments. Reinforcement then fine-tunes these behaviors, strengthening what seems to work, even if it is not always healthy. This cumulative process can lead to the two main forms of interpersonal extrinsic dysregulation, either trying too hard but ineffectively, or avoiding emotional situations altogether. When children have tried to manage emotions and it's been met with mixed or negative results, they might learn to avoid. This avoidance is a way to escape situations that feel overwhelming or futile. It is also important to remember that this is a two-way street. As children grow, their interactions with parents become more complex. If a parent also struggles with their own emotions, it can create a loop where the child's attempts to regulate the parent are met with more complex, sometimes dysregulated, responses from the parent. This ongoing dance between parent and child is crucial in shaping how these regulatory patterns develop over time. So, what does this all mean? If a child is struggling to manage others' emotions, we need to start thinking about interventions that look at the whole family system, not just the individual child. Treating a child's difficulty solely as an individual problem misses how crucial their relationships are. This is especially important for kids with neurodevelopmental conditions, where understanding and responding to emotions can be extra challenging. On the policy level, this means looking at broader societal issues, reducing stress for families, making mental health support more available, and being culturally sensitive in how we teach about emotions could all help ease the burden on children to manage their families' emotional lives. It is about creating stronger support systems for the whole family. This paper lays out a clear path for future research. For starters, we need more studies that follow kids over time, from early childhood into middle childhood, to see if these patterns of trying to regulate others' emotions are consistent across different relationships, like with family and friends. The researchers also predict that the two ways this dysregulation shows up, the miscalibrated attempts and the avoidance, might have different roots. For instance, the persistent attempts might be linked to inconsistent parenting, while avoidance might stem from dismissive parenting. We also need better tools to measure this specific type of dysregulation, so we can clearly distinguish it from other difficulties. In a nutshell, this research gives us a really valuable new way to think about how children learn to manage the emotional world around them. It moves beyond just focusing on a child's own emotions and highlights the crucial role of their attempts to regulate others. By understanding the complex interplay of attachment, learning, and reinforcement, we can better support children's development of healthy emotional lives. It's a reminder that emotion regulation is not just something that happens inside us, but is deeply woven into our relationships and our social world. This research is a significant step forward in understanding children's social and emotional development, offering a more nuanced view of how their early experiences shape their lifelong ability to connect with and influence others. It pushes us to consider the broader family and societal context that influence these complex emotional dances. What do you think about this idea of interpersonal extrinsic dysregulation? Have you seen this play out in your own life or with kids, Let us know in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more dives into the fascinating world of psychology. We'll see you in the next one.